What's up, pre-Chiro students? It's Dr. Ben again. And today is a very exciting day because we actually get to connect with another pre-Chiro student, somebody who's about to go to chiropractic school. And this channel is really trying to build a buzz around chiropractic for pre-Chiro students to form a culture and really start to develop just some understanding as to what pre-Chiro students are up to, what they're doing to prepare for chiropractic school. And so, Thomas Bendross, can you just kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit about your undergrad and what you majored in and where you were at in the program when you discovered chiropractic and decided you wanted to become a chiropractor?
Yeah, no doubt. My name's Thomas Bendross. I studied at Western Michigan University for undergrad. When I first got there, I didn't know what I wanted to study at all. I had a university development class that was geared to um, obtaining my interests and summarizing like those kind of details, and athletic training, personal training, uh, and chiropractic were all in my top three. So within there, the next part of the project that I had to do for that class was I had to interview uh, two people in each of those professions, and kind of kick it with them and let them know like where I was in the program, or well, I was still undecided, but to let them know like how my interests fell in line with their interests and things like that. And
Mm.
through that, I kind of was sold on chiropractics very early. But then once I started progressing through my like degree and curriculum, I started taking more holistic based classes, and
Mm.
that's when I really realized like, this definitely sets apart from, just personal or athletic training. So it took me a couple of years because with me being undecided when I first got into undergrad, I was taking like exploratory classes.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I did get through my program, I honestly, at first, I started losing motivation to go to chiropractic school just because I didn't want to sign up for additional years of schooling.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working at YMCA as that's where I did my internship. I was working there as a personal trainer, and for a while it was actually pretty smooth until like COVID-19 hit.
Mm-hmm.
The athletic facilities shut down and gyms, and that really put a change of perspective on like what I wanted to do, and like essentially like how um, much weight my degree would carry. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
from there, I kind of like started going back to the drawing board, and you know, I went back to what I initially planned on doing. You know what I'm saying? So I
Mm.
wanted to see it through. I mean, I wanted to make sure that it was something that I still wanted. So I started doing a lot of research. I started, watching more videos again. I always on LinkedIn had like I was always getting like chiropractic, like information, just so I could like stay in the loop, and you know what I'm saying. And
Mm-hmm.
even after all these years, I never really lost interest in that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
how I got back into yeah,
Got you,
got into
got you. And
this.
so you said you were taking some holistic classes in undergrad and you were majoring in something that gave you the opportunity to get exposure to chiropractic early on. Like, how did you get that exposure? Were you like in a freshman class that was just telling you chiropractic is a profession, and like how did they contextualize it? Because athletic training, personal training, and chiropractic are way different, right?
Right,
Like
right, right,
way different type of path.
right. Okay, so I didn't say this part. When I was a little bit younger, when I would play sports, I had a friend in my subdivision. His mom was a chiropractor. So like every once in a while, I would just get free adjustments. And I think this started around when I was like 12 years old or something like that, and it only went till I was like 16. But I felt amazing like all the time during that. So
Mm.
then too, I'm also kind of weird. I'm always cracking my bones and things like that. So like when I seen chiropractor in the top three, I instantly just thought like, oh, my childhood friend and his mom. And then um, also a lot of it too came down to like the financial stability that I believe that chiropractics could bring to my life, because um, like, so I'm from Michigan. Like both of my parents work in automotive, and their parents worked in automotive. So like I'm the first generation that actually gets an opportunity to do what I want to do rather than what's financially suitable at the time. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when that chiropractics when it like came up, you know what I'm saying, I wasn't like 100% sold, but a lot of it was based on the fact that I knew that, wow, this could put me in a nice subdivision as I live in already.
Mm,
Um, this is something that I'm familiar with. This is something that used to make me feel good. Like, you know what I'm saying? I want to bring that to other people's lives as well. And
mm-hmm.
then, so that was just on the surface level, like before I got to undergrad. And then when I got to undergrad and I actually started studying the body, or like studying how um, I would have to communicate with, you know, people that came in, or like, you know,
Mm,
just the different principles and ideas that we were applying in the classroom, like really resonated well with me. So like I had like two sides of the coin, you know what I'm saying? And either side of the coin was always working in my favor when it came to chiropractics. So that's
mm.
why I came back to here.
Got you, got you. So you didn't get to school yet. What's the preparation been like once you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor? Where are you at right now with things? Like what's your focus? Like what's most important to you? What are you doing right now to really get your mind right and get your body right to be a chiropractic student?
Okay, so the first thing I do is I dive back in all the textbooks that I feel that I struggled with in undergrad, or maybe concepts that um, maybe I didn't struggle with, but concepts that weren't necessarily tested. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it might set like a foundation for a later uh, course that I might have at Palmer, or things of that nature. But for the most part, what I've been doing is like just trying to familiarize myself with Palmer and like the people that have attended there, and like trying to see other people's like success stories. And you know, ever since the Palmer page posted me, a lot of either alumni or students that are attending there now have been reaching out. So I've been connecting with a lot of students, and
Nice.
I think that's very important for me, at least, because I don't really know what kind of chiropractor I want to be, and my path to chiropractics is a little bit different, or chiropractic is a little bit different than,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, other students. So
Mm,
this is actually the first time, because when I was an undergrad, I didn't know anyone who wanted to do what I wanted to do as well.
mm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So this is the first time that I'm, you know, communicating with other students who have similar paths or similar stories. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm truly blessed for that.
Have you been visiting any offices yet? Are you getting care? Have you been getting any regular chiropractic care just to kind of experience what it's like as of you today? You know, you said that you had experience before college, getting adjusted by your friend's mom. Are you seeing anybody currently? And have you been to any offices recently? I'm just curious.
Well, I've been to an office, but not to get an adjustment. The only office I've been to was my friend's mom. When she seen that I got accepted in the Palmer, she was, you know, really rejoiceful. So I just kind of visited and to stop by and be like, hey, you remember me? Like, but no, I haven't received any adjustment. I'm not opposed by any means. I just haven't, and I don't know, my with this whole COVID going on in Michigan, I don't know, my parents have been weird about things, so I've just kind of just been trying to lay low and beside
Copy.
work, and you know, trying to limit my stops for real.
Okay, okay. What was the application process? You said that you kind of decided after COVID that you were going to become a chiropractor. You had to kind of change pathways. Like, was it difficult to get in? What was your GPA? Like, did you have a degree that they looked at, and was it easy for you to get the letters of recommendation and write your essay on why you wanted to become a chiropractor? Like, what was that whole process
Yeah,
like?
I got you. It was I put a lot of eggs in this basket. So when I say that, I mean, so let's talk where I was at before. You know, I was applying. So I had graduated in 2020 in April, but you know, COVID shut down the state in like March. Um, so like I wasn't going to work every day or whatever. Um, at that time, I was living with my girlfriend. So this was my ex girlfriend now. So I was living with my girlfriend. Um, I was kind of in a really comfortable state. Like, you know, oh yeah, I'll just work here at YMCA. She was still in school. Like, I wasn't really achieving for like the next level just quite yet. So when that happened and it shut down, and I realized like how easily, sorry, my dog is crazy. Hey, hey, hey. once I really, okay, 1 second, sorry.
It's all good. Take your time. So we're just having a pre-Chiro conversation. This is very interesting stuff for anybody that just wants to understand what the pathway to chiropractic school could look like to somebody. Sounds like here we have a student that really is transitioned to this pathway because his life was kind of turned upside down with the path that he was taking being a personal trainer. And he's just talking to us about how he decided to become a chiropractor. He's about to start at Palmer in the next couple of months. Very exciting. And, we're going to get into some challenges. I definitely want to talk about some of my recent challenges. I don't think I talk about that enough on this podcast, and just shine a light on what it's like to be a chiropractor today. But at the same time, this is a really great opportunity just to illustrate that there are pre-Chiro students out there that are about to go to chiropractic school. And I hope if you're a pre-Chiro student out there listening right now that, you come on the podcast, have a discussion. Let's explore what's important for pre-Chiro students today. So
Okay.
get back into like where you were at when you decided you want to become a chiropractor. Like what did you do? What was the next step?
Okay, yeah. So I was living with my girlfriend at the time. I wasn't really achieving or reaching for the next level. I was very comfortable. Once I got shut down with the whole COVID restrictions, I kind of started to feel weird because I was just freshly graduated. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really have my next steps in order. What I was doing to take my time wasn't working anymore. So I had to figure something else out. And so I went back to the drawing board and I was like, okay, I could still go to this original chiropractic plan. So I started going through that, but the type of girlfriend I had, I knew wouldn't be supportive in the move because I would move to, there's no chiropractic schools in Michigan. And I wouldn't take her along the journey because I would want to focus on my studies. So I knew she would have a problem with that. So I was applying like behind closed doors. So when you were saying like how hard was it to obtain your letters of recommendation, it was a little bit more difficult because I would have to email like people and then I couldn't get back to them right away because I was living with my girlfriend. I would get calls from the people I needed my letter of recommendation for, and I had to like reschedule for like right after work or right before work.
Mm-hmm.
Then when COVID shut things down, it made it difficult for me to go obtain these things because like university was closed, so I couldn't meet face to face with teachers. Um, so it ended up working out well because I kept open communication with like Palmer, and they were able to like limit my letters of recommendations from like just my employers, um, and then I got like a couple like emails from like professors to people, so like it started to work there. But basically, I just knew that the step or the stage I was at my life, it wasn't really gonna go any higher if I didn't do anything about it. And the person I was involved with wasn't really dedicated to their future. So it was like almost kind of detrimental for me to stay in that position. So then when I finally did start applying, and I ended up telling her about it. Like I said, she wasn't supportive of that, so we kind of walked away from that. But at the end of the day, I just feel so amazing about it because this is something that I've always wanted to do, you know.
Mm.
Even though I did start to lose motivation from like either my own self doubts or uh, maybe my fear or anything like that. Like I'm
Fear
glad that
fear around what? Like fear around becoming a chiropractor or the schooling or the debt?
all
What
of
were
it.
you
Like
fearful about? And like what's your understanding of chiropractic? I'm really curious just because it seems like you had that initial experience with a chiropractor, but like going through undergrad, you were a personal trainer, which carries a certain mindset which might be different from a chiropractor. So I'm just
yeah,
curious, like to this point today, like why do you want to become a chiropractor? If you could just share a little bit about that.
yeah. So what I was mostly afraid of was one, I don't really have many people in my life that I can look to for like guidance when it comes to like schooling, right? So even in undergrad, like if I would call home and be like, "Hey, I'm struggling with this, that, and the third," they would kind of just be like, "Oh, well, you got it. You'll figure it out." Like, you know what I'm saying? So like with me always knowing that, with that always being present, it's always it just makes me a little anxious sometimes because I know when it gets really difficult, like there's nothing they can say besides, hey, do you need a tutor? Or you got it, we'll pray for you. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like,
Mhm.
signing up for a chiropractic school, you know, where the tuition is significantly higher, the cost of living in Florida is significantly higher than Michigan. Um, the equipment that I would have to obtain to be able to do just that, be a student. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of that makes me anxious, but I'm not worried about it because I got to do what I have to do for myself. But like,
Mhm.
when I was stepping into, okay, this is what I'm going to do with these ramifications, like, these were the things that I firstly thought about. But personal training, so the personal training, the chiropractic, right? How I feel about chiropractic is like, you know, we're gonna, like, the concept of like, that I started entertaining myself. Like, people don't stand on even 2 feet, like, with the same amount of pressure. Like, let's say you weigh 100 pounds, it's not 50 on the left, 50 on the right. So, with that being the case, there's so many things that go wrong, whether that's at the ankle, hip, or knee, right? Or whether that's even in the spine itself. So, like, the concept of being realigned so that you can perform optimally, because, like, that's always what I've been motivated by, like, performing optimally. Like, what
Mhm.
can I do to make me jump higher, run faster, dunk the ball better? Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what I want to be able to bring to other people's lives. Like, I want to be able to bring out the best in them. So, like, in the sense of personal training, it's kind of similar, right? Because you make people stronger. Like, you know, you're motivating them, you're pushing them to be better than they can be.
Mhm.
Um, but like, the only difference being, chiropractic would be like, I would be doing something with my hands on them rather than like telling them what to do for themselves. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
Mhm. Mhm.
with personal training, if you can see certain things like, oh, maybe he's internally rotating his knee too much because his, you know, his gluteus medius muscle or whatever is not like strong enough to support his whole leg. Um, so little things like that, and like how you would make those manipulations through exercise routines,
Mhm.
like, I was always attracted to. So, like, when it comes to the other side of being able to restore mobility, or, you know what I'm saying, bring out better athletic performance, you
Mhm.
know, I like that. And then two, I have a friend who was involved in a motorcycle accident.
Mhm.
So, like, he's been told that, you know, he won't walk again. And if he does, it will be at like an extreme limited capacity. And like, I don't like hearing that. So, you know what I'm saying? If possible, if there could be, you know, new research, or, you know, new discoveries of like things through chiropractics, or just through me being involved with people who know a lot about the spine, maybe I can bring more opportunities to him and his family. And
Mhm.
like, the more people I feel that I can, no pun intended, like, touch, but like, I feel like the greater it would be.
So that's dope. So if I hear you correctly, it's really about the impact that you could make as a chiropractor, like the amount of people that you could reach. Through your experience, what types of impact do chiropractors make in their communities, and like what's the message of chiropractic? Because I'll tell you, being a chiropractor, the message that's out there in our communities of what chiropractic is a lot of the times different than where I'm coming from as a chiropractor. So I'm just curious if you see that from, I don't mean to call you from like the outside looking in, but
Mhm.
like from just
Yeah,
somebody who's not there yet. What's your view on what chiropractic is in your community, and then what you've learned it to be through experience?
I would say, so I had the experience first before I kind of knew what they were kind of doing. So, like, I was just a child, lay down on this table. I'm gonna put this pressure here, here, here. You're gonna feel a release when you stand up. You're gonna feel different. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, um, in terms of how I felt, like, I knew that it was something that it was just different. Like, it wasn't just like, you know, a toss up or something like that. Like, I could feel myself almost reverting back to improper form, like, as weeks would go on without me receiving an adjustment.
Mhm.
So, you know, from that perspective, I've never felt more, I don't know, like I did gymnastics, I did sports. I've never felt like more free, like when I was receiving those adjustments. So even though it's been many, many years, like I guess on the outside looking in, I would just assume chiropractics to be about, just realignment. So like all your nerves in your body can like transmit the proper signaling that it would need to, that restores optimal health, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
clearing any blockage. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, this is very raw. I'm kind of just going off the top of my head, but like when I
Mm-hmm.
think of this, I just think of like tightness and limited mobility, and you know what I'm saying, through certain techniques or manipulations increased. Or like I think of, what's it called, it'll come in a second, but any like spinal disabilities or things like that that can be corrected or adjusted or worked with.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of just what I assume
No
chiropractic.
doubt. Yeah, no, I appreciate you just giving a raw reflection on what chiropractic is through your lens. I think this is really valuable for somebody to be able to look back. Like if you can look back on this conversation in a couple years and
Mm-hmm.
maybe just see where your head was at, and maybe it
Right.
doesn't shift, maybe it doesn't transform like your understanding and context, but I'm sure it will. And
Mm-hmm.
what have you received in regards to resources to build context in regards to like what chiropractic's about and how can you go deeper to better understanding chiropractic, the human body mind continuum, just how people live their lives through their nervous system, just any context building has taken place. Like once you decided to become a chiropractor, you told Palmer you wanted to go to school. Like, did they give you resources to explore? Any books? Any offices to visit? What's it been like in regards to the support that you've received as you prepare?
So right now, the quickest things that I'm like talking to my advisor Ben about, the things that like what we need to get figured out like sooner than later is like my Palmer portal ID, so I can log in and be able to access other students. That's also going to be important for me to be able to like move in with other students. In terms of like books and resources, there was one I got from a friend. It hasn't been anybody who was at Palmer. It's called it was actually written by the first chiropractor, and they were saying it used to be a required test at Palmer, but it's not anymore. I can't even think of the name. So there's been books like that, but like I've said before, I think the most that I've been doing is tapping into like old, anatomy books, or like um just things of that nature, and like trying to refamiliarize myself with things that I might have, you know, just lost over the program. Because when I started school, it was 2014, and it went on till 2020. So like I probably got in my program around 2015 or so. So yeah, that's been about 5 years for like some of the core classes in my program. So I don't know how um, much, what I'm saying, I've retained or over the years. So I've been diving back into that, trying to go.
Okay. How would you describe yourself as a student? Were you a really good student? Did you have like a high GPA or
Yeah, I had, or this is the thing. My first semester in college, I was on academic probation. My first semester, I got out there, I uh, I was undecided. This is what made it really bad too. Since I was undecided, I went out there, took did a lot of partying, way more than I was supposed to. Um, and honestly, I was on. I can't remember my GPA. Was it like a two? It might have been like a 2.0. It was awful. Like, my parents were literally telling me like, if you don't get it together, you're gonna be right back at home. Like, so the next semesters and the subsequent semesters after that was about, even before I found out that I wanted to go into exercise science, it was more about being able to stay at the university I was at. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to come home. So
Mhm.
when I was undecided, I wasn't a great student. You know, I wanted to go do the most. I wanted to go to parties, talk to other girls. Um, I was young, And then once I got into my program and once I really started to see and understand the effects of like a poor GPA, that's when it really started to bother me, because a lot of the classes that I did bad in weren't hard. They were literally like first year experience. You just had to show up, film interpretation. You just had to show up, like. But the thing is, these classes were so unrelated to studying the body that when I finally got into my program a year later, I never wanted to go back and retake film first year experience with a bunch of freshmen, or like classes like that. So when I actually applied myself, I was a phenomenal student, when I limited my distractions. But, when I first got there, it was a world I never was exposed to. I'm an only child. My parents were pretty strict. They didn't let me party in high school. I got to college. Girls were calling me cute. Go come to this party. Oh, it's a Monday. So what? I'm like, okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it took a lot for me. It took a lot of me like bouncing around, like, I guess, the perimeter to know where my boundaries were. And then once
Mm-hmm.
I really found out what was for me, and like, because I learned pretty quick, like, I didn't really like parties. Like, I didn't like everything that came with it. I didn't, but before I knew that, I thought that was what I wanted to be into.
Mm-hmm.
So now, from an elevated perspective, um, I have so much more information, and I'm so much more thankful because I know when I go to Palmer, one, I know what I want to study. Two, I know I'm only going to Palmer to do this. I'm not really going to party. You know what I'm saying? I could technically stay at home and party for a hell of a lot cheaper. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but that just all takes time to, grow into and, realize things about yourself. So,
So if you had it your way right now, like you're not in chiropractic school yet, like what would be available to you? Is there a need for there to be a structured pre-Chiro experience in your eyes? And if so, like what would it entail? Like what do you feel like is missing right now from your understanding so that, you're clear going into chiropractic school, like what chiropractic's all about, what the experience could be like, maybe being in different offices. What do you think would be helpful for you at this stage that you're at right now?
to be honest, I think, like, so since I'm coming from only interests, like, I'm coming to Palmer based off of, you've completed the classes we need you to complete, and you're interested in chiropractic. So I would need more things like, what kind of chiropractor do you want to be? Like, how many different chiropractors are there? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, different philosophies that different chiropractors have. Like, just a whole bunch of, because technically I really won't meet people like that unless I like see in their on Instagram it says like they're going to Palmer or things like that, and I reach out to them if they hit me back. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I would think a place or a platform that would allow more people to, like, you know, just send information, like whether or not they were going to, uh, actually enroll in the school or not. Like, even if someone just was like, what's chiropractic? Like, you know what I'm saying? They would be able to have an access to all types of information, and hopefully they would be swayed and pulled into the program. But, if not, at least they would have a better understanding than, just watching videos, because a lot of my friends literally think I'm just going to be in there breaking people's necks, breaking people's backs, and
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so from a perspective of that, I think the most beneficial thing would be like a networking opportunity for a whole bunch of similar like-minded students to be able to communicate or bounce ideas off of before they got to campus. Because my thing is, the I remember when I got to Western, I was undecided at first. So when I was progressing through the program and I picked exercise science, I still didn't know what I wanted to do for real. Like, I knew that, okay, if I study exercise science, I can go to chiropractic school, but that was so far down the future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I still had been thinking, like, okay, if I don't want to go to chiropractic school, what's my plan B? And, personal training fell into my plan B, but that kind of happened so late in college. Like, I didn't know I was gonna, at the start of my senior year, I didn't know I was gonna go into personal training. I kind of just was at one place, and, I volunteered somewhere, then I got an internship, then that's what they needed. I was qualified to do what they needed. And then,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't like I was like, yeah, personal training, I want this to be something that I'm into my whole life. Like, even when I first started doing it, I was like, okay, maybe only like 2-3 years, but like, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're not really in connection with any other pre-Cairo students at this point. There's not really
No,
any. No.
no. If I am, they are like, there's maybe like 5 to 10 people I follow that, has been posted on the page as well that says like Palmer bound. But
Mm-hmm.
other than that, no. I pretty on my own here. Feel like I'm on my own island.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. I mean, looking back at the school you were at, was pre-PT kind of a thing. Like, was there a presence there or not? You don't remember?
I think we did have a physical therapy program, but I'm not 100%. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think we had any PT
It's all
schools
good.
here.
I guess my question is more about like what clubs were you seeing around you that had a presence, that there was like a culture, there was a vibe where it was like these people are all kind of going down the same path together, working together.
I would say it would be. It was called It was a fraternity, but not a fraternity. It was like a student ran organization, but we called ourselves XI, and basically it was for like exercise science. But it was XI, and basically, they had different workouts you could show up at, or different organization events. Like you could, let's say once a year we take a trip to Indiana and stay in a hotel at a conference, and like, different fitness expos. When I worked at YMCA, actually, I got into a lot of fitness expos because we would have to go like promote that we were opening another location. So like Fit Body Boot Camp, or you know, all of these little programs, Pumped Up, Survivor Size. These little programs had students who went to Western who were either in the program XI, or like who studied the body in some way, or were involved in like human performance and health education. So in terms of that community at Western, it was a nice community, but there wasn't like, at least for me and my experiences, there weren't like anything that took me to the next level. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and by next level, I mean advance my career interest in chiropractic, or next level by making sure I was okay after college. I know I was a weird generation too, being like the first COVID generation. So like everything ended so abruptly, and we haven't even had our graduation. Like, um,
Mhm.
so like I know, so the career center, the resources that are supposed to be available to you for years after you graduate, right now is at an extreme limited capacity. So, um, not that I have a bitter taste in my mouth with Western and how it all ended. It's just that I don't really feel that I have access to as many opportunities as, let's say, previous generations that have graduated before COVID-19, just based on the fact how everything ended. Like, yeah.
But I mean, like in reality, it sounds like chiropractic is not something that is being promoted by guidance counselors or by teachers.
Oh no, at Western, no, no, no. I think maybe the entire time when I first got to my first class was foundations of exercise science, and very early they're always asking like, okay, who wants to do what, who wants to do what. And I think at that point I had raised my hand to be a chiropractor, and I think over the years I was at college, I've only met 1 or 2 other people who had interest in going into chiropractic. And I never even, it was so early in the program, I never even like obtained their information to see if, you know what I'm saying, because one, I didn't even know if they would be around in 4 or 5 years from now. Or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But no, it's not really being promoted. Like, if it wasn't for my friend's mom and the experiences that I had, when it would have came back on my top 3 interests, I pretty much wouldn't have known anything. I wouldn't have known enough to be like, oh yeah, that that holds a lot of weight, as opposed to, because of my friend's experience and because of like I already had been introduced to that, I was like, oh yeah, cool, I could do that. Like, Yeah, I'm with that. That seems amazing, actually.
Hmm.
So,
I'm excited for you. Is there anything I could do to help you in this moment? Just like anything that I know you don't really know what you don't know, and
hmm
it's tough to ask questions when the context might be somewhat limited. It sounds like you really need to go see a local chiropractor or two or three or four and
hmm
start, bring a journal with you and start to make observations and start to get experiences from different chiropractors. But beyond that, is there anything that I could do or any questions you have that would help maybe ease your transition or any questions that get brought up in your mind from the things that you see online, whether it's the YouTube or the Instagrams that you're following?
um, let me think. For one thing that I think would be useful is like any pre-Cairo students that you know of, just send them my way. Let them
Okay.
so we can like link and talk about
Yeah.
certain things. I believe that the faster I get from this like isolation period, and the more I'm able to bounce ideas, because I feel like that's why I struggle with like um conceptualizing or even thinking or bouncing ideas, because I'm from such a limited perspective, rather than if I have someone come in and be able to say, okay, well, this is what, you know what I'm saying, introduce me to new ideas. So even when I part from them, I'll have new things to think about.
Gotcha.
Um,
Hmm.
so that or
Hmm.
um, any resources. I know you were saying earlier about something like books, or if you know any, I would more than be happy to. And let me also
So,
say, like,
yeah.
thank you.
Have you explored this channel yet at all or not really?
Well, I have actually. It wasn't until you messaged me. So I actually, on some really small world, um, when I went to your page, I seen someone who went to Western, like on your pre-Cairo. His name's like Mazi, the student, or something like that. He has
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah. Philip Mosley.
yeah,
Hmm.
Philip Mosley. Yep. So he was on there a little bit ago, and I watched your two, and then I've been like just looking at different like pictures or just different posts you have, and like I have been flipping through your page a lot.
Yeah, the
Um,
Instagram's kind of limited, but the YouTube channel and the Facebook page have like over 150 interviews with pre-Chiro students, chiropractic students, and chiropractors from
okay,
all different schools around the world. So
that's on Facebook.
that's on Facebook and YouTube.
All right.
Yep. So if you search pre-Cairo student, I think you're the fifth pre-Cairo student we're just tapping in with just to get a feeling of like where their head is at and where their heart is and why they're going to chiropractic school. Um, and then I just invite you, the chiropractic student connections show you what current students are really up to right now. So you get some really in-depth insight, but my thing is really just like for you specifically right now in this moment. When are you starting school?
October 5th.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So you have like 5 months or 4 months. I'm not
mhm.
doing the math in my head, but go and get some care. I'm sure there's chiropractors out there that will either, give you a student discounted care, or if you kind of build the value in their eyes of helping them in some way, I'm sure they'd be down to just take care of you knowing you're about to go to chiropractic school and you don't have a ton of experience. It sounds like you really only seen your friend's mom a
hmm
couple of times.
Yeah, maybe like 4 or 5 times, and then I'd seen a chiropractor in a Western, but that was more so to interview. That wasn't necessarily to get adjustments or anything like that.
Got you. Got you. What's interesting about chiropractic is, when I look at what pre-PT is doing and pre-med, it's really all about getting into school. It sounds like once you decide you want to go to chiropractic school, you're pretty much just in. Like there was a couple of things you needed to do, but it wasn't a difficult admissions process. The thing about chiropractic, though, is it's difficult once you get in. Like the long-term outlook on what it takes to become a chiropractor and what it takes to really show up in the world as a chiropractor is much more challenging than say what the dominant mainstream narrative is, which is being a physical therapy, physical medicine, or being a medical doctor and distributing pharmaceuticals or doing surgery. So being a chiropractor is it's a totally different path, and that's what these podcast interviews that I've done that I invite you to go and explore. will show you like what it looks like to have a conversation and a connection with a real chiropractor. Who I have interviews on there with people that have been in practice over 40 years, and then people that are just starting like right now, like they just got their license this week. So, do some exploring through the channel, and then feel free to reach out to those people. I'm trying to populate the descriptions with their information, but if you see an interview and you want to get connected with any of those people, I can help you with that. But yeah, we'll have a follow-up conversation offline, and I'll share with you some of the resources that I've developed, that I'll hopefully be launching publicly soon. But it's just good to get it to you right now while it's relevant.
I appreciate that tremendously. You for the YouTube channel, is this on your Instagram? Can I find this through your Instagram?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
just the same name, pre-Cairo.
Okay.
Basically. Uh, yeah.
Word.
Anyway,
Word.
or anything else like I guess, is there anything you think you could do with Western to build a presence of chiropractic now that you like have had this conversation with me, see that it's not really being represented, knowing that you obviously came from that path and want to maybe give back or just help leave it better than it was when you left? Like, are you in connection with maybe a guidance counselor there or any of the teachers
Um,
who could share resources?
I do have a few. I have I guess I think the best resource I would have to see um it would be, her name is Professor Julie Rady. She's not the head of the exercise science department, but she runs a lot of classes. And the reason I say her name is because she was always responsible for like bringing in like, the head strength coach at Michigan State, or like, bringing in people who did immense things, and a chiropractor's never come in. So, um, something that I could do would be, if we did have like that open line of communication, you know what I'm saying? If someone was in the area, or if someone was
Hmm.
willing, or someone needed to do something like that,
Hmm.
it would be easier accessible. Like, you know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah, I think that's really important that, pre-Cairo students are kind of responsible for building a presence before they leave, just because they've came from an environment that there is no presence, there's
Right.
no representation. And you know what it's like to be in an area or in a community where you're the only person that, is identifying as maybe a pre-Cairo student in this context, but there's many other contexts that we could talk about. You being the only person that's got your background, or has your experience in the room, and what that feels like. And I think the more we could build presence, the more people can feel that comfort or that
Right.
supportive feeling that you get when you're around people that share this same interest or share the same passion. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I do. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not even gonna lie. I've never even thought about that before. But I kind of was on like attitude of like, all right, Western, I'm done here. But now you bring that into perspective, that could be right. Because imagine if there's like 10 kids that possibly could be considering chiropractic, but just don't have the information. And if they didn't have, the background that I did, they might not even know about it. It might just be a YouTube video or something, like.
Right. Right.
So
Because you kind of got hyped a little bit when I invited you on this podcast. You were like, yeah, I want to share this
yeah, no
for my
doubt. Yeah.
future. This is now my career trajectory.
Hmm.
And it's like, what about looking back on Western and how you just left, that school? And when you look back, like, what can you say your legacy was and your impact was on that school? Because, here you are already kind of blazing a trail for future prospective chiropractic students by having this conversation with me. Why don't you keep carrying that energy back to the school that you just came from, where there's literally no chiropractic presence? So
All right.
I'll
That's
give you a
fire.
couple of handouts to give to the guidance counselor or to that teacher, and
Yeah.
then we can work together on trying to identify some local chiropractors who can either do Zoom calls on demand, with the teacher, or they can go into the classroom, because I think schools are opening back up now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than willing for that information. Just send it my way, and then I'll actually, when we get off this podcast, I'll email Julie and see if see if she'd be interested as well. And then I can just share those documents with her. I can forward whatever you send me, and then
Okay.
go smoothly.
It's easy. It's easy.
Easy, easy.
I think that the power, people don't recognize the power is really in the student's hands. It can't be coming from an admissions department at a chiropractic school that's trying to promote their program. It's really needs to come from within, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
things will happen quickly if the students recognize the power that they hold and have a clear purpose. That's the other thing, is having a clear goal that I want to help the next generation of students. Like you came very far, it sounds like. You left chiropractic, you came back to it, now you're here. It's like, okay, now that you're going to stay here, you might as well recognize the opportunity, but also kind of the responsibility that you have for that younger version of you that's just entering college right now.
Facts, yeah, facts.
So I'm just putting it out there to you. We'll work together. I appreciate your energy this morning.
Thank you.
um,
Appreciate yours as well. Thanks for even having me on here. It's a wonderful opportunity to get and speak and share my story of how I got to chiropractic. And, you know, I gained a lot of insight today, too, about different things that I can be doing while I'm progressing on my journey, heading towards the classroom. And yeah, so I'm very
I'm gonna just
thankful
keep
for
building some context in your mind, just because we're here right now.
it.
So, most chiropractors, whether they work for another person or whether they have their own practice, are in an entrepreneurial mindset. And it sounds like, being a personal trainer at the YMCA, I actually had that same background. You're not really challenged by like going and trying to find clients. Like, actually, you do introductions to the gym for people, and then you like kind of usher them in. Like, hey, if you want to get some personal one-on-one, I'm available. I'm here. But being a chiropractor, you know, you you're a small business owner. You don't really work for the YMCA per se. So just starting to also look into entrepreneurship as something that, there's so many YouTube channels, there's so much out there to study what it's like to be one of those. And it sounds like maybe your parents have experience, maybe they don't with that. But um, recognizing that you're going to be a teacher, doctor means teacher, or doctor could mean teacher. Recognizing you're going to be obviously doing something that's physical and mental and spiritual. So like getting your mind, body, spirit right. And yeah, studying the sciences. I've had a number of really amazing scientists on this podcast. So I'll do a better job at giving you specific interviews to watch, just to hear some of the topics that get touched on. But the goal is to hear those topics from these conversations I've had, and then to go deeper and to like really go into YouTube or Instagram or study through Google Scholar or whatever you want to do, but that's how you familiarize yourself with the terminology.
Mm-hmm.
And the more familiar you could be, I think the easier the transition process will be. It's still going to be a really difficult path. Becoming a chiropractor is extremely challenging, but I think that, with the right amount of support, some of the edges could be smoothed out, some of that roughness can be made a little easier. So that's just some little basic stuff, but I just want to kind of keep building context in your head of like really what you're signing up for, because I think that gaps is maybe a little too harsh, but there's definitely gaps in like what you understand, like
Right.
who you are now and who you're becoming, like what that entails. It's a lot. So I wish you the best though, regardless. And if you ever need any additional like questions, anything, I'm here for that. I think that is really important. I think even just this conversation, like you said, it can open your eyes to a couple of things without me even really sharing too much with you. I really just was listening to your story. But that in you telling your story, there's a lot that comes up, right? So um,
I
yeah.
appreciate you for listening and having me on here, able to even have the opportunity to get my face out there, let other students hear my story, see if there's anything common similarities or anything like that. So
Most definitely,
it
yeah.
was fun, honestly. I enjoyed it, to be honest.
Yeah, and there's, you were just being factual. You were just like, this is facts. Like, this is my experience, and
It is what it is. Take it or leave it.
yeah, it's really relevant though to so many people. We can't even really understand how the things that we just said could impact hundreds of people in the future. So
Right.
that's really what this is about. So